What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to have a deeper look at the CR-56 AMAX, or the Galil Ace, but more so from the perspective of Warzone. Now, for those of you guys that missed it, I've done my extremely detailed gun guide on this gun already, and I will leave that link down below if you want to check all that out. But with my gun guide series, it's primarily focused around multiplayer, even though most, if not all, of the stats end up carrying over to Warzone. Having said that, there are a bunch of stats that are much more valuable to pay attention to in Warzone that I didn't cover within that video, and it turns out this gun is amazing in Warzone. So today, I wanted to answer the question, is the CR-56 AMAX the new best gun in Warzone? So let's just get into some of the basic stats of this. Our rate of fire is 645 rounds per minute, and our damage to the upper torso is 42 up close and 28 at the longest ranges. There are some other damage drop-offs in there as well, but we're keeping things nice and simple for this video. What this means for our DPS value, or our damage per second value, which is extremely important when you start factoring armor into the equation, is the AMAX has one of the highest DPS values in the entire game at 452 up close. This is better than all of the assault rifles, with the one exception being the M4A1 with the SOCOM rounds, although that is a very niche weapon, whereas the AMAX isn't. And the only other guns that really beat it out in the DPS value are going to be some of the SMGs, and in those cases, it's only a very short range where they're going to beat you in DPS versus this, because this actually has great range properties, which we'll look at in a little bit. And then also the one LMG, which is the MG34. That also beats it in the DPS value. Aside from that, nothing else competes when it comes to DPS with the CR-56. But taking that into our time to kill, our base time to kill, assuming the enemy has no armor, which we have seen in the gun guide, this is 186 milliseconds up close, which is very fast, and then it drops down to 279 milliseconds at really long ranges, which is quite solid at long range. The one thing we didn't look at in the gun guide, though, is what happens with our time to kill when the enemy has 3 armor plates equipped. Well, in this scenario, our time to kill in the first damage range is 465 milliseconds, which is actually faster than almost every gun in the game by a very large margin. The only other full auto gun that kills faster than this is that M4A1 with the 458 SOCOM rounds, which again, like I said, that's more of a niche weapon, whereas the CR-56 is much more versatile. And just to give you guys a feel for just how much faster this time to kill value is against these 3 armor plates, by far, the current most used gun in the game is the CR-56, and that one kills in 640 milliseconds, which is almost 30% slower than this gun. So assuming you're able to hit your shots, you will be killing people significantly faster than a CR. Now, as important as damage and rate of fire and time to kill are, those can't be the only factors we look at, because it comes down to a lot more than that when you're looking at a weapon. The next thing I want to take a look at is the range, and as you can see here, our first damage range extends all the way to 24 meters, which is quite solid, and our second damage range deals almost the same amount of damage. You're still dealing great damage all the way out to 40 meters, and then beyond that, you're still dealing pretty moderate damage. It's worth noting that the minimum damage to the upper torso with this gun is equal to the maximum damage to the body with the CR-56. Also, when you have a look there, you can see the Zodiac barrel gives us a really nice boost to our range values, and I definitely recommend using this barrel in Warzone. Now, range isn't really relevant if you can't hit your shots in the first place, so let's have a look at the recoil, and first up, we'll have a look at the base recoil with no attachments whatsoever, so you can get a gauge of how this gun tends to perform in the recoil department. And the first thing I want to point out is when you're shooting this, it really feels like there's a decent amount of recoil. Like, there's just a lot of visual recoil to this gun. However, when we look at the actual recoil pattern itself, there's not that much at all. It doesn't really bounce side to side at all, which is the hard recoil to deal with. It kicks pretty much straight upwards, which is very easy to predict and control. So we're in kind of a strange place with this gun. Technically, it's got great recoil properties, but you do have to be aware of that visual recoil, and it is something where you might lose sight of your targets, and you have to also train yourself to sort of trust that the recoil is actually better than it looks. But taking that one step further, I have a build here using the longest barrel and the Merc foregrip and a couple other attachments that don't really impact recoil, but I just wanted to show what that looks like if you stack a few attachments to help with recoil control. And you can see here, we get excellent recoil properties. This is right up there with my M4 and my Grau builds as well. So yeah, this thing has a ton of potential when it comes to accuracy, as long as you can get over that visual recoil. So those are the main factors I wanted to look at when judging this gun within Warzone, and also I'm going to be bringing in some of my experience with this. But I did want to look at some of the main pros and cons with this gun to see if it really is the new best gun in Warzone. So first up, it does have the highest DPS in the assault rifle category, with the one exception being the M4 with 458 SOCOM rounds. So that is a huge positive in Warzone. Next, it's the second fastest killing gun in the entire game, with the exception being like sniper rifles with headshots, or once again, that M4 with 458 SOCOM rounds. And the key with this isn't a niche weapon by any means. You can use this in a wide variety of situations. It's not like it's only good up close or only good at longer ranges. It's good at pretty much any range. It's quite forgiving if you miss a couple shots here because it doesn't have like a super low fire rate with a high damage. It's got a moderate fire rate with a really good damage. So even if you happen to miss a couple bullets here or there, it's not going to be the end of the world for you. And to top all of that off, it's also got great range and recoil properties. So I've really talked it up and it's sounding like an incredible gun. However, there are some important downsides to point out as well. The first one is our magazine capacity is limited to 45 rounds. Now, this isn't the end of the world by any means. It's not absolutely horrible. It's actually okay that we get the 45 round magazines, and I would recommend using them in Warzone, but it's not quite that 60 round mag that you would get with the M4 or the Grau. Now, you could also argue that since it has a slower fire rate, you're not burning through these magazines as quickly. But at the end of the day, if you're dealing with multiple enemies that have armor, this could get you into more trouble than you would if you had a 60-round magazine like some of the more popular guns that you see in Warzone. Additionally, when comparing this to some of the most used assault rifles in Warzone, it does have a little bit of a slower movement speed and aim down sight speed. Now, this isn't by a large degree by any means. It's not like it's a night and day difference, but it is something you really need to be aware of. It's going to move a bit slower, and it's going to handle just slightly slower. Of course, also depending on what attachments you choose. And finally with this, when it comes to the downsides that we should be aware of, there is a lot of visual recoil, like we talked about earlier. And for many people, this is a huge turnoff. To them, it really feels like this gun is inaccurate, even though it technically isn't. And I understand why they would feel that way, because it does look like it's bouncing around a lot more than it actually does. So in conclusion to all of this, is the CR-56 AMAX the new best gun to use in Warzone? I would say almost. It's right up there. I would say this is definitely a new top 5 weapon, maybe even a top 3 weapon to use as a regular primary weapon if we're not including sniper rifles in there. And it will be interesting to see what happens with the next title update that we get, which Infinity Ward has confirmed they will be doing some weapon balancing, and they did confirm this within the context of somebody asking about a Grau nerf. So it's pretty much assumed at this point that the Grau is going to be nerfed in some way in the next update. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens after that update. If they were to nerf the Grau and leave the CR-56 untouched, maybe it would end up taking that top spot. But as of right now, I would more so put it as a top 5 or maybe even top 3 primary weapon within Warzone. Now, one other thing I wanted to quickly address here is the CR-56 with the 10-round magazine. With this, you do get significantly boost damage, you get great headshot multipliers and everything, but it only gets a 10-round magazine, and it becomes a semi-auto with a very low fire rate cap. I've had a lot of people asking if this is an amazing gun in Warzone as well, and in my opinion, it's okay, but it's not amazing like some people have been claiming. Now, I've got a few reasons for this. First up, it shoots way slower than the FAL, so it's not nearly as forgiving. Second, it only has a 10-round magazine, so if you're dealing with multiple enemies that have armor, good luck, you're going to have to hit all of your shots to headshots, otherwise you're going to get caught in a reload. Third, the SKS is just superior in almost every single way. It's got better ranges and body multipliers, also better headshot damage. It's got a 20-round magazine rather than a 10-round magazine, and it shoots a little bit faster than the CR-56 with the 10-round mags. The only real thing that the CR-56 has over the SKS is the fact that it uses assault rifle ammo and not sniper ammo. That's the big drawback to the SKS. So at the end of the day, the CR-56 with the 10-round mags, I wouldn't call them absolutely horrible by any means, but it's not even remotely close to the power of the regular full auto version of this gun. Of course, that is just my opinion based on my testing, the stats, and my experience with this gun. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think of the CR-56 AMAX within the context of Warzone? Do you think this is the new best gun in Warzone, or maybe just top 3 or top 5 like I think? Or do you think I'm overhyping it, and do you think it's actually a bit overrated and it's really not that great? Just let me know all of those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.